Hey, what's up, familia? Welcome to La Vida Blended, the podcast where we dive deep in real life stories, human connection, and the journey toward emotional well being, always with a dose of humor.
Yeah. Back up in this thing one more again.
I've gotten a lot better about pausing.
Oh, she wasn't ready for that one. She wasn't ready. Yeah. We here.
Jeez, can I at least finish our intro?
Of course. Go ahead, finish.
We're your hosts, Donnell. We're your hosts, Mila.
And I'm Donnell.
And we're here to explore the tough conversations, the personal growth, and the powerful experiences that shape our lives, whether it's navigating love, loss, or everything in between. We believe in keeping it real because life's too short to take it seriously all the time. And on today's episode, we're about to have a long overdue conversation. We're
Yep.
talking about something that affects us, that affects so many of us. And I know personally affects a lot of my family members, yet it often gets swept under the rug.
Something taboo, if you will.
Depression
Mm.
in Black and Brown communities.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Depression.
Now, look. Depression isn't something that we usually talk about openly. And I am officially 39. And now I can say that I am a person and then I'm part of my immediate family that openly talks about it all the time. Especially, in our communities, that's not something I grew up in. And I know you and I have talked, and it's very much the same for your community. We've been taught to essentially keep it moving, to be strong and to push through. And as the oldest, I was taught to keep calm and collected so that I could be responsive to my younger siblings, not stress them out and not freak them out about what was going on with me, because I was responsible to be the older sibling and to protect them. But the truth is, mental health struggles do not care how tough you are or how much you've been through. They're real and they're hard and they're heavy. And that's why today we're here to break the silence and to normalize these conversations and to say, hey, it's okay to not be okay. And I want to reintroduce myself. I'm Mila, and I have had my own experiences with depression, whether it's been the heavy weight of clinical depression, postpartum depression, after miscarriages, or those darker, colder months when seasonal depression comes creeping in. And I felt and lived it. And I'm here to share with you. And of course, that I'm not doing this alone. And today the focus is not on anxiety, but I'm also diagnosed with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. So when you blend those two things together, it can get complicated. And but that's why we thought it was important for us to share our experiences and to talk things through.
For sure. This is, we're trying to break down these barriers. And that's what's most important. Again, I'm Donnell. Like Mila said, we're diving into something that's super personal for both of us, right?
Yeah.
I've had my own individual battles with depression, and it might look differently from maybe what you've experienced, what you've seen somebody else experience, different from what Mila has experienced. And what matters is that it hits us all differently. And when you're in a community that doesn't always understand or give you the space to talk about it, for us, especially in Black and Brown communities, talking about mental health, much less acknowledging it, can sometimes feel like a luxury or a sign of weakness, even.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we're here to tell you it's not. It's only human for you to go through something like this. And so, in this episode, we're going to get into why depression often gets brushed aside in our communities, how it shows up differently for different people, and why it's so important to change the narrative. Super important to change the narrative. All right. So we want to make sure that you, our listeners, feel seen, heard, and empowered to start your healing journey because that's what this is all about. We want to break the stigma and open the conversation so no one feels alone in this fight. I mean, in so many ways, in our brief journey, I feel like is brief in our podcast lives.
Mhm.
We've already been breaking stuff down. We've already
Yeah.
been having conversation about things that people don't have conversations about. So
Mhm.
again, understand that you're not alone in this fight. There are ways to get help, look for help, get support, all those things. So please
Mhm.
know, we're just here to share our expertise and insights. This podcast is for informational purposes only, right?
Yeah, that
We're
way we don't get sued, you know?
no, and I don't want I don't want you to not go through the proper means to
Yep.
get individualized help, right?
Absolutely.
So we're not providing individualized counseling, right? I might be a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. Okay, all right. So we're not diagnosing, we're not treat or doing any treatment or anything like that. So if you're seeking professional help, please reach out to a licensed clinician
Mhm.
for personalized support. That's
Absolutely.
super important.
Mhm.
Hopefully, you can learn something from us,
Mhm.
and maybe it'll inspire you to seek additional support,
Mm.
do additional research on your own, and figure out and find out information.
Mhm.
But just want to
Yeah.
put that as a caveat.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Donnell. I think that's super important. And I will also make sure to add those resources on how to access support to our webpage, our Instagram account, just so they can all go back in case whenever you feel ready that you take that first step in seeking that support. Um, with that being said, we Donna and I have been talking a lot about like why does mental health feel like a taboo subject for so many of us, and why do we brush off sadness or anxiety like it's no big deal? And in our communities, it often feels like mental health struggles are reserved for people who don't have like enough to worry about. And that's why, therefore, like what he said, it feels like a luxury. But guess what? Your pain is real and it matters and it deserves to be acknowledged. And again, we're here to remind you that that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to feel down and to need that support. And it's okay to be able to name that. And I know that and what we will be sharing, we'll be, sharing our experiences and how we got there because it was not easy for us to get to where we're at today,
No,
where
no,
you're
no.
seeing our faces and talking about depression. It's taking us a long time and a lot of hurt and pain that could have been mitigated perhaps if we would have acknowledged it, addressed it, and gotten connection to services and support sooner rather than later. So let's dive in.
Yeah,
You
let's
ready
do
for
it.
it?
Let's do it.
So before we, jump into our personal like little narratives and stories, we wanted to just provide some context. Again, we're not like professionals. This is just from what I know personally in my own lived experience and, what I've been taught, in grad school and as a social worker. But, first, depression shows up in our communities, in everyone. It's not racist. It's not specifically to certain communities. I will say that communities of color tackle like specific, you know, symptoms, that other white folks do not, experience in this depression. But let's break it down. So when we talk about depression, it's not just feeling sad or, for a few days or lonely or that it's that persistent feeling of like emptiness. And I don't know if you all have ever felt that, but I know for me, like I felt it in my body. I felt it in my mind. I felt the fogginess and I felt like I had so many loved ones around me, but I still felt empty. I still felt lonely. And I felt like a deep sense of hopelessness and it impacted every part of my life and emotionally, mentally, and even physically. Like for those that know me, I was an avid like runner and I would work out and it wasn't like to lose weight or anything. Like I just loved it as it supported my mental health. So that to me was a big sign that I'll later talk about when I did not work out. Like when I got to that point, that's it. That's definitely a problem and a challenge for me. But again, not all depression looks the same. So what do you think, babe,
I
about
mean,
that?
let's just again, let's further break it down, right? There are a few different types of depression.
Hmm.
So you got to remember that too. It's important to understand them so you can see what's coming up, right? So I think the most well known is like the clinical depression, also called major depressive disorder. Those
Which is
that's when
what I have.
Yeah. And that's when someone experiences persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, loss, or loss of interest in things they usually enjoy, right?
Mhm.
If you usually hitting up the basketball court every week and it's been a month and you just don't feel like it, mm, you might want to pay a little bit closer attention, right? If you love seeing your friends and family and have a good time hanging out and y- spend an extended period of time, you just don't feel like talking to nobody,
Right.
something you might want to pay a little closer attention to.
Mhm.
Okay. So, and usually, again, it can last for weeks, months, or even longer, right? I think um, well, let's get into the other one, seasonal depression, or seasonal affective disorder. And that's tends to hit during the colder months when there's less sunlight, right? We experience 9 months of rain and clouds, barring global warming,
Right.
um, or climate change, I should say,
Mhm.
which can throw in some hotter temperatures or some colder temperatures. But in the Pacific Northwest, it does tend to be pretty gray for a really long time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so you may live in an area similar to that
Yeah.
where that might happen as well. So it's more than just the winter blues. It's like a real condition
Yeah.
that can lead to a lack of energy, low motivation, changes in sleep and appetite, even isolation. And
Yeah.
for a lot of people in the colder climates, this is especially difficult because the sun barely shows up, right? And so that's something that's really real too.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why you see for those that are not from the Pacific Northwest, we had a little bit of sun this week, and then you started seeing everybody outside. And then when I used to be at the U of O, this would be the time where some students would be out on the lawn with a bikini on because they felt a little bit of
In
sun. Like that's how
55-degree weather,
deprived we are.
and
Right. And
only
it was not
a
it
certain
was
type
not
of person
bikini
does
weather.
that.
Right
But
now is what I like to call the fake spring, because it's teasing us, but we're back at winter because it's cloudy and cold outside. But with that being said, one of the things, as I mentioned, as a person who is diagnosed and has received, lots of therapy for my depression and my seasonal depression and my generalized anxiety disorder, it's one of the things that like just makes it so difficult is those coming dark months, like, and I had no idea like what that was, because I'm originally from California, and so the weather was not like how it is here where we live, and it really affected me. But it was like those long, dark, cloudy, rainy months. And then what I experienced was very specific symptomology that, again, I had not connected until I had a professional tell me this is what's going on. Like I was experiencing irritability, like I was short tempered, I was angry, I was frustrated. I was like wanting to avoid the world because I just wanted to stay in the home and be warm because it was too cold and dark outside. And that's like I just didn't want to do anything. But then again, it wasn't until somebody noticed in my nuclear
nuclear, now I can't even say it.
nuclear
Nuclear, nuclear, nuclear.
nuclear.
Yes, that's how you pronounce it.
Oh Lord.
Got me questioning my own self over here.
Listen, I'm bilingual, okay?
I was
Sometimes
Mila trying to pronounce this word, stressing. How you say it again? All right.
oh Lord. And so again, it took somebody to tell me like, yo, something's not right. And for me to acknowledge like I really can't tough this out. Like I actually do need to address this concern.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
Well, and sorry to
I
interrupt.
mean, I wanna tap into
Yeah.
the season aspects,
Yeah.
seasonal depression aspects because I didn't realize I don't I don't necessarily I haven't been diagnosed. I'll say that I haven't been diagnosed with seasonal depression. At the same time, I have examine or notice a difference in me. We had a run about like 3 or 4 years in a row where we would go somewhere sunny in the
Mhm.
wintertime. So that
It
was,
was like a must.
yeah, we went on a cruise one year. We visited her family in LA one year.
Mhm.
We had another trip somewhere sunny one
I
year.
think it was another cruise. We're cruisers,
We're
so
cruisers, yeah. So
mhm.
I noticed how different I felt throughout the whole winter because I had that stint and that moment of just some sun, some heat. It really did have an impact on my winter.
Yeah.
And so the effects of climate is real. And I'm somebody who's born and raised in Oregon,
Mhm.
and in Portland, Oregon, and that's all I know, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I've been able to
Mhm.
experience Mississippi in the summertime, but it's relatively sunny and hot up here too.
Mhm.
And so to have that break though, it
Mhm.
really did have an impact on me.
When Thank you for bringing that up because then for me, it was like I needed that little extra something. And what I mean by that is that we were super intentional that we acknowledge like this seasonal depression for me is really hard and we need to get out and experience some sun. Like, and so we became very intentional and I was in grad school, then he was in grad school to schedule those January, December trips for that very reason. And then for me, one of the things that my doctor talked to me a lot about were my vitamins. And so I needed that extra vitamin D. So I do take my 2 vitamins a day of my vitamin D because it was completely impacting me. Like I needed that like balance. And now as a person who takes vitamin D every day, regardless, of the sun or not, like it really has supported me in so many different ways. So it's like I have to still do that little extra, but really have appreciated when we were able to think ahead and plan those trips out because they're so necessary. And with that being said, let's get into the cultural piece because I feel like we've briefly talked to you a little
Yeah.
bit about depression and a little bit about the impacts on he and I, but in black and brown communities, mental health isn't talked about in the same way as physical health. And I would say actually as a social worker, that's most communities like and the systems that serve people, it's the same way.
Hmm.
It's like they address physical like a broken leg quickly and they fix it. They do what they need to do, but when it comes to something that they can't see and it's in the heart, it's like the internal pain, it's often left untreated or misdiagnosed or not believed. And so that's even further for my community. I know for
Yep.
your community, and and I think that's has been an impactful thing in my personal family that when we are considered the Rodriguezes, right? Like that's my maiden last name, and we're tough people, and we're just going to tough it out, and that our struggles are just part of life, right? Like my parents had to go through a lot by when they migrated here to the states, and we had to go through a lot when we were living in Compton, but we were tough. We survived it, and so it was really easy to think like, gosh, like I'm just stressed. I'm stressed. There's a lot going on in my life. I'll get over it. It's just what I need to do in the right now. But it wasn't until like I needed to recognize that there was something, right, that might need the attention and or treatment, especially when I noticed the impacts that it had on my brother. And if he would be here, he would share the same story with you that he experienced addiction at such a young age and dealt with it almost like a lot of his adulthood. And now he talks a lot about like he just didn't have the coping skills to be able to deal with all the things that we actually went through. And that toughing it out was the way to go. But clearly it wasn't the way to go for him. He leaned on, drugs to do some of that coping, but it wasn't fixing anything. Matter of fact, it made it worse. And it was because at that time, my parents, we were all in denial of what mental health was and what addiction was at that point. But
And that, I mean, before we get to our scheduled program, I just want to kind of piggyback off of that.
yeah,
I think people don't really realize how depression affects everything else.
mhm,
The coping mechanisms that you adopt, right? That may or may not be, oftentimes are not healthy. Whether that be addiction to some type of substance, whether
right,
that be something else that's harmful.
Mhm.
These things happen. There's negative health effects for lack of coping and properly processing your emotions, your sadness, grief, loss, all these things that really do impact you. So understand, by just like you not taking care of a broken leg,
Right.
if you keep walking on that broken leg, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse
Right.
and worse
Mhm.
until it's until it's too late.
Right.
And so you want to make sure, and when I say too late, I mean like too late for the leg to be saved, the bone to grow back, right?
Mhm.
And so you really want to think about addressing things that you are going through internally,
Yeah.
because it's just as important as addressing something physically.
Mhm.
It does have real world physical impacts. It's not just a mental thing.
100%. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That's really important.
So that leads us to kind of like this idea, right? That therapy is for other people and not us. Right? For me, when I say us, I'm talking about black folks. And that's the same thing
Mhm.
the Latino community as well.
Mhm.
Right? Um, sometimes it's viewed as a sign of weakness, that you're able to uh, just pray it away, right?
Mhm.
Or keep pushing through. We all heard these things, right? When it comes to, I gotta be honest, my church going folks, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with leaning on the Lord. But it's always interesting to me how quick you go to the doctor and how hesitant you are to go to a therapist. Because God gave us a doctor, and God also gave us mental health professionals to help support, right? So that you can find your way,
Mhm.
something that works for you. Therapy is not the only thing. I think those spiritual practices, our communal network and social network and family structures are all important. The activities that you participate in, it's a holistic thing. So I'm not
Mhm.
trying to say therapy is the only
Mhm.
way. At the
Mhm.
same time, it's really interesting how quick you go to the doctor and how hesitant you are
Mhm.
to seek professional mental health help. So that's just something to add. And so,
Yeah.
um, but there really is a huge fear of being misunderstood or stigmatized, and it makes it even harder for people to reach out for help.
Yeah.
That is real. We're often taught that because we've faced so much hardship, whether racism or poverty or systemic issues or anything else like that, we should just be grateful that we're still standing. Yeah, we should be grateful that we're still standing, but the reality is, carrying all that weight without addressing our mental health can make us feel like we're drowning. And so it's really important that we do address these things coming up. And so, one thing I always like to acknowledge, and you might have heard me talk about this in other episodes, but I'm going to give you a specific example. Our suspicions in our communities, especially in the Black community, does not come from nowhere.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna read you this. I'm gonna read you this diagnosis way back in the 1800s. It's called drapetomania. Okay, drapetomania was a proposed mental illness that in 1851 American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized as the cause of enslaved Africans fleeing captivity. So yes, there was a diagnosis for enslaved persons wanting to flee captivity. All right. So this hypothesis was based on the belief that slavery was such an improvement upon the lives of slaves that only those suffering from some form of mental illness would wish to escape. I give you this example, right? And I got this example the first time I remember coming across, and maybe I came across it before, but reading "Decolonizing Therapy" by Dr. Jennifer Mullen. So as I'm reading this, and you are thinking about this example, understand this is a field that has been used against us,
Yep.
that has been used to keep us enslaved. So we question the field with valid reason.
Mm.
We are hesitant with valid reason. And at the same time, as I might talk about a little bit, a little bit later, we also have to come to realize that the things that help us survive, the resistance we had to psychology or the field of psychology as a whole, we may need to adjust.
Absolutely.
We it may not be serving us like it used to serve us. And so taking a new approach, being cautious, of course, and making sure you are finding what works for you, what
Hmm.
works within your spirit
Hmm.
is important as well.
Yeah.
And so just want to, give that caveat.
Yes, I appreciate you naming that caveat because I think that's really important to acknowledge. And because again, it doesn't come from anywhere that people are experiencing a sense of like distrust, right? And another thing that he mentioned was, I can't remember what you just said, but what I was thinking was like also it's finding your people, right? And
Oh yeah.
what I mean by that is like finding the right finding providers that look like you or perhaps understand you and understand you holistically and or speak your language is really really important. And I'm saying this as a person who's taken 10 plus years to find, well, actually our fertility doctor is a Black woman, my OBGYN is a Black woman, my PCP is a white woman, but it took me years to find and trust people because I know that there's also Black maternal health, right? Like
Yep.
where Black women are dying at higher rates, right? And in hospitals. And so for me as a non-Black person of color, like I'm constantly also in a place of wanting to support and uplift Black and brown, professionals in their field, right? But I also know that we live in the US where systems are not set up for Black and brown communities to be able to become doctors, nurses, OBGYN, like they're so limited. And and I further say that even within my own community, finding a Latina therapist who understands the concepts of grief, my cultural community, and depression has been so hard to find because the one or two that are available are completely full and are full forever and ever, right? So I wanted to also give that caveat that he and I both understand the complexities of like that fear that you might have, while also understanding that systemic oppression is real and leaves us, Black and brown people away from those systems that allow us to get to a place to be able to provide, for our own community. So really wanted to name that out.
Yeah.
So, Donnell, when we're thinking about this,
Hmm.
it's heavy. So, just in general,
Hmm.
what was your first time realizing something was like affecting your mental health?
It's weird, um, because there's this unique blend
Hmm.
of the tradition of denial. So much so that it's not you. Of course, it's a form of denial. At the same time, it's understood that something is wrong. Something is wrong.
Like
Like
that.
you are feeling, your feelings are deeper beyond what is normal. But because of the world that we live in as Black people, we don't take the time to address it.
Yeah.
And again, it's a survival mechanism.
Hmm.
We had to endure the institutional slavery, Jim Crow, lynching, all types of political, economic oppression. And that is something that we've had to develop to keep going.
Right.
So that it makes sense
Hmm.
that we have that. It's just that, again, the things that helped us survive may not be serving us the same right now.
Hmm.
So it's really important that we reassess. And so this denial,
Hmm.
right, was really, really important. And I think what really got me
Hmm.
was the journey I started getting into when I
Hmm.
had Kendall, my son,
Okay.
because I wanted to provide a better example.
Mm.
I did not want him to be uh, a boy without emotion.
Mm.
I did not want to have him live a life of him suppressing his emotion.
Right.
Right. I still have a firm belief in like emotional control and appropriately.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that will stay. Kendall knows, there's things you can cry about and there's things you can't cry about. Um, it's like, when he was 5 and he was crying because he didn't want to get in the shower, that just was unacceptable. Okay. But missing your mom or something like that,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
different things like that was always okay. And I knew I needed to provide an example for him. So I went on this journey on my own and realizing this through um therapy, whether it be couples therapy or independent therapy. I realized that I had deeper feelings, and part of
Mhm.
that was because of the world I lived in.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I really, really understood what was going on and how deeply impacted I was, it was after a storm of my first miscarriage with Mila and my grandmother passing in the same week. COVID hit,
Mhm.
George Floyd, and a mixture of like the nature of my job and work and everything like that. While I'm in grad school,
Mhm.
all of this and another imminent surgery for Mila, all of this happening at once. And so because those things began at the top of the year,
Mhm.
I just I was like, I gotta get to the next. I gotta get to the next. I gotta keep doing. I gotta keep
Mhm.
going. I still got class. I still got work. I
Mhm.
gotta go back. I can't take time off.
Mhm.
All these different things. And it ended up just blowing back. It just I ended up taking a month off or something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just to and fortunately I was able to have enough time and different things like that to be able to take, almost a month off just to kind of help everything with you, also get myself right emotionally, um, and figure out how to, live in the world of,
Mhm.
I don't know if we can even say it because we'd be getting censored. The great disease.
Mm.
Uh,
That's one way to put it.
right. That wasn't so great.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I had to hit that rock bottom almost
Mhm.
to be like, okay, wait a minute, wait, wait, I can't do this. I can't do it like this.
Mhm.
I got to start figuring something out to where I'm acknowledging things and I'm processing before it gets to a point to where I'm nearly having a nervous breakdown.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that was when I first kind of realized that something was wrong. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I feel like my observation as his wife, I mean, we've been together for 10 years and it's been a journey to get to him saying this in particular. Because as his wife, I did acknowledge in the beginning, I was like, I think he's very in denial that he has depression. And I would talk to him and he would say, No, I don't think so. I think I'm just tired. I think I'm just sad. And so it took me, like you said, when you hit your rock bottom, I'm like, Donnell, you're not talking to your friends. You're not reaching out to your family. You've gone radio silent. You don't text back. You don't call back, and there's a lot going on in the world and there's a lot going on in our family. I cannot be your person. Like, you need professional help. And I think that was like, I think you, and maybe we haven't talked about this in the pre-production, but I'm curious, like, I think he needed my permission maybe to not see him as a less man. I mean, I don't know, but like there was something that like you finally agreed. You were like, yes, I do need to take the time off. Yes, I will go see, our therapist tomorrow and I will see her consistently. Like that, like there, it was like a rude awakening. But one of the things that I really appreciated what he said was like, I hit my rock bottom and it was starting to affect, it was like creating ripples in his life. Not just with me, but like I said, with his family, his friends, our child. Um, and so I was like, as his wife, like I remember sitting him down. I remember telling you, like, I care for you, I love you, and I'm worried about
Hmm.
you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I don't feel like you gave me, like, I don't feel like you gave me like, I don't feel like I was
You needed permission.
not necessarily needed permission.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like you were about to just judge me. I
Yeah,
think
no.
you've fortunately, since the beginning of our relationship, you've created a space where I've just felt safe to be authentic.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't feel that, but your support for sure was so much in that situation. So like even if it wasn't kind of like coming from this like fearful
Hmm.
place,
Yeah.
your support still was like
Yeah.
was something that was just so uh so vital
Yeah.
to me going the direction I did instead of just falling further.
Right. Right.
And so, that was just helpful beyond measure.
Yeah.
It's priceless. You're priceless, dear.
I know.
Yep. And so yeah. What about you? What about when the first time you started realizing something was wrong?
That's a very good
Oh,
question. Oh,
dang.
dang.
I wanted to say something. Sorry. I'm
Oh.
gonna ask you again.
Hmm.
But I wanted to loop it back because you alluded to it and I alluded
Yeah.
to it as well. When we are not taking care of these things, we cannot be the partner that we need to be.
Yes.
You cannot be the father you need to be, the son, the friend, whatever roles that you play. When you are not addressing these things, it has a direct impact on your relationship.
Yeah. A lot.
We cannot help fill other cups if our cups are empty. We
Yeah.
cannot help people. The oxygen mask, that is so cliche, but we have to
True.
put our oxygen masks on first
Hmm.
before we can help somebody else with their oxygen.
Yep.
And that works most immediately and most closely with your significant other. So if you are not doing what you need to do, it will have an impact. Now we all need
Absolutely.
support, right? I just
Yeah.
spoke about that support that Mila had
Yep.
and Mila gave me. We all have our ups and downs. We all have our ebbs and flows. That's normal.
Yeah.
At the same time, we also have to make our steps to get where we need to be so we can do our best to be our best selves so that we
Absolutely.
can be our best selves in all of the roles that we play.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that. I think that's really important, and I think I've mentioned this before in other episodes, but I do feel like my first marriage did not work out. That was one component. There's so many other things that did not work out, and that's why we're divorced, but like one component, like I had experienced two miscarriages with my ex-husband, and I was not doing anything to address my mental health. Nothing. I was embarrassed to talk about it, and nobody else around me had ever experienced it.
Mm.
I felt like talking about
Or
it,
they never talked about it.
that because once I actually did, the flow of people that were experienced miscarriages was astronomical. Sadly, it's real.
Yeah.
And but I do know that me not taking care of myself and my depression like really affected my marriage. Among many other things, right? That he did, I did, all the things. But that's really important. And I do think that we have been able to stay as long as we have been able to stay together because we're committed to each other, but because we're willing to address our mental health stuff, right?
Yeah. We're committed
Everyone
to trying to
do
continue to be
something about
our
it.
best selves
Yeah,
individually.
absolutely. And so I feel like to answer your question, I think it's like for me, it's been in multiple like ways.
Hmm.
I feel like that when I was divorced, I realized, wow, like I never addressed my miscarriages. There's nothing wrong with me. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I don't care that people think it's stigma or a taboo to talk about it, but it happened to me and I don't want to feel alone. I don't want to feel this helpless. I don't want to feel this hopeless in isolation. And I think that's when I realized I need to figure this out. And also, like, I'm a person that has long term, like, insomnia, but that's again another symptom of depression. And I needed to do something about it. And thankfully, like, and that was also unfortunately a time when my dad also got a divorce from my mom. So that was like an added layer of grief. And then my brother at the time was really not doing well with his addiction and really impacted our immediate family. And the waves of emotions were too heavy for me to bear. And I had already been seeing a psychotherapist for a while in my previous marriage. for my depression, but again, it comes in waves, and that wasn't enough. And then I got to the point where I've had multiple miscarriages, um, and lots of medication,
Mhm.
lots of hormonal therapy for my IVF. And I still wasn't sleeping. I was still very irritable. I was still very angry. I was still very frustrated at the world, at all the things. I wasn't sleeping. It was just disastrous. And I would tell myself like, but I've already gotten psychotherapy. Like I've already done all this CBT, DBT. I've already done all the things. Why is this? And I'm like, well, because life continues to happen and it continues to
Absolutely.
be so heavy that just that one intervention, that one time is not always going to be enough. Now, for me personally, in talking to my doctor, who I absolutely trust with my whole heart because I've been with her for 10 years, um, she kept introducing medication for my depression. And I kept saying, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm working out. It helps me. Like doing all the things. But it was until I stopped working out and I did not want to do any of it. And that's when I realized I'm not okay. Like, I'm definitely not okay. And I finally agreed to starting very small dosage of antidepressants, and I'm still on them. And I can't speak for anybody else because I'm also not a doctor, but it has really been a lifesaver because I've also been someone who experiences acute mental health concerns when I have been really impacted by my depression and have needed other interventions, but this has definitely really balanced my mental health among all the other things, right?
Mhm.
Setting boundaries, like really pushing like I can't do it all for everybody and being okay and comfortable with that reality. Cause as a Latina woman, as a young older one, I had to carry it all. But I've gotten so good about
Mhm.
like setting those boundaries. But I feel like it's been waves for me that I continue to address, readdress, address, readdress.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something. This
Yeah.
is this is off script. I'm going off script.
Dun dun
Dun, dun, dun.
dun.
And I'll allow you to ask me the same question. But what were what were some key points of being with somebody who was experiencing depression? Being a partner to someone who was experiencing depression. What were some of the key points or key things or
That you should
important
know us
things?
as a partner.
No, that just that you went through, that you should know as a partner, that you went through, your approach, all those things. I just talked about how
Mhm.
your encouragement was
Yeah.
so vital to my journey of continuing to get better,
Yeah.
or and learn myself more, so I can acknowledge different things. What was like?
Mhm.
What was that experience like?
I think it's multiple things. I'm a very multifaceted human. And I think patience was key. Like often you would ask me, what do you need from me? And I'm
Hmm.
like, patience. Patience in all ways. And what I mean by that is that I explained to him, I literally got no sleep or I haven't been sleeping for the next 3 days. So my anger, my frustration, my irritability is going to be at an all time high. I need patience from you. And just remember, like, it's not about you, it's about me. So don't take it personal.
Yeah, you answering that differently. I was asking like,
Oh,
what was the keys or the big things in your support of a partner, me, who was going through a depressive episode?
episode. Oh,
Like, yeah, because I was thinking about, you know, a lot of us probably live with a partner
mm-hmm.
who experiences depression.
Depression.
What's our mindset? What's our keys? What's important to us when it comes to this?
Why don't you start? Why don't you answer that question? And then I'll answer.
I was asking you for a reason because I ain't, we off script. I ain't have nothing really worked up. But no, I think love is one of the keys. I think remembering who your partner is, being able to detach them going through something from who they are is
Mm-hmm.
super important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a fine balance of that, of course. Just like, and you have to determine what that balance looks like for you as far as somebody becoming symptoms, right? And
Right.
the work
Yeah.
that they put in or are attempting to put in, and
Yeah.
um, whatever, that decision is for you is for you.
Mhm.
At the same time, I do think in a healthy and reasonable way, you have to detach these symptoms from the person.
Mhm.
One of the other things is I know there was like a lot of acknowledgement that I'm not your everything.
Mhm.
I cannot.
Mhm.
Nobody, no partner, I don't care how amazing they are, no human, I don't care if it's a friend or a parent or anything, can be your everything.
Right.
And so I remember there were moments where you would feel really bad because I wasn't providing support in a certain way that
Mhm.
maybe a friend provided better support,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
a brother, or something like that. And I remember just like trying to reframe that for you, like that is a good thing.
Yeah.
That is okay. That is a blessing,
Right.
because though I'm good in this and that and support you in these ways,
Mhm.
I still can't be your everything. I
Right.
will, of course, try to get better and try to grow in those areas, but
Yeah.
I can't be your everything. So that, I mean, that's a couple, I guess,
I mean, I feel like
separating the symptoms from the
yeah.
person, and then um, encouraging your partner when it comes to being
Mhm.
able to do the things they need to get their mask on, their oxygen mask on
Yeah.
individually.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
I
yeah,
think that you spoke to some of the things that I was mentioning earlier about when you were experiencing that deep depressive episode. I was like, I need you to go hang out with your friends. Like, go connect with them,
she
go
was just sick
golfing.
of me, y'all. No, I'm just playing.
No, I wasn't. Matter of fact, I think I even texted some of them and I said, "Hey, I really need help. Can you please get him out of the house?" Like, and he has such loving and caring, understanding humans in his life too. And so it was like a text message that's all it took for them to be like, absolutely got him, kind of a thing. So I too have the same, like, and actually that's why I don't like two halves make one. I'm like, no, two
Nope.
whole people, like, and committed to themselves and their work. And it is a great key, like a key component to great partnership, especially for somebody who experiences, depression. Um,
I ain't seen a lot of half of people walking around here. So I'm just saying.
what?
Just saying. There's two people. Two holes make two people.
Right.
Two halves don't make a couple. That make
And
a one.
I mean, and I say this often, like a last key thing. I say this often to Donnell or in the past, maybe like, taking care of yourself is sexy. Like you running away from the things that you actually need to address internally and externally, not cute, not sexy at all. And so it's a very attractive thing to, to be with somebody that is taking care of themselves, who is unafraid to be like, no, like I don't care what nobody thinks. I'm going to do what I need to do to protect
And
myself.
that's
And
mentally and emotionally
right,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that would be the last key thing too. It's sexy. I think it's cute.
Hey, y'all do too, cause y'all be watching all them people who been going through it on Love Is Blind,
Mm-hmm.
on what other names, some other these shows they be mad at. All these reality
Paradise.
shows, all the
Yeah, I'll be
Paradise, all the Love and Hip Hops.
Bachelorette.
Y'all be seeing all them people who be denying stuff and just stuck in their ways, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
do what they need to do to better themselves.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
It's sexy to y'all too.
Yeah. And I will say, like, huge component to what we believe, addresses some of this is also continuing to break the stigma. And I know for me, it was like breaking the stigma as far as in our culture. Like, we don't ask for help. We keep it in house, like, so that we can avoid el que dirá. What would they say? So that was very much like how
Break
I
that down
grew up.
again.
El que di- now I
I
can't.
don't even think I know that one.
El que dirá in
Mila,
quotation.
are you okay? Can you pronounce it again?
You're so-
She's stressing. She's like, how am I pronounce this one more again?
El que dirá, okay?
Okay, thank
El
you.
que dirá.
Thank you. Appreciate
Well,
it.
now I said it wrong again. But it's the what would they say? And it's like you have this perfect family, everything's great, and you don't
Mm,
talk about your problems to nobody, and nobody needs to know your problems because we address it at home. That is like very like palpable in our community. And so that in like the man being strong and men don't cry. And it was very much something that I definitely had to break through, even in my own like mentality of how I saw men and the type of men that I wanted to be with. And that was, because I feel like if we weren't addressing the impact, right? In my mind, I've learned the hard way that seeing that through my brother um, really led to that burnout, really led to coping, in a way, with his addiction. And so instead of like, it was like the hidden tolls of depression, right? Like it took him down because he felt like that was his only outlet because he needed to be strong. He needed to not have expressive, like emotional needs as a man.
Hmm.
And so that nearly killed him. And I said, never again. Like, I want to be part of the generation that breaks the stigma, that breaks the silence, that does better for the next generation.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about this for Kendall, right? Like I want him to not have to cope by using, by drinking, by all those things. I want him to be
Or
able to
and denial
right,
is such a big part of
right,
people coping in that way.
right. Or that it makes you less of a man, right? I
Hmm.
want him to be at a place to say, I'm actually not okay and to seek that support, right? Because you just never know. I don't want it to be something that he has to push through. I don't want it to be something that makes him feel like there's something wrong with him. I don't want him to just be consistently tired when there are other things that could be done to help address some of that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so what a I know we've talked a lot about how depression has affected our daily life and in some way somehow, but like I'm curious about what are your thoughts on like what you needed to do within your own family to break that stigma?
What did I need to do within my own family to break that stigma? I think me and you have unique roles in our
Mhm.
family. We got like some leadership roles. You're like the matriarch for your generation, and I'm kind of like the patriarch. And
Mhm.
there was, I think with that comes a certain authority
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
where it's like, you don't have to necessarily fall in line because you are leading. You're leading the way.
Mhm.
Me and you
Mhm.
together are both, individually are thinking about how can we improve our family? How can we do our part,
Right.
right, in helping our family for generations to come and helping them right now? How can we
Absolutely.
help grow our family for the better?
Mhm.
And so when it came to me going through these different things, part of it was just kind of like actually sharing.
Mhm.
And that's, it took me some time to become confident in these things, right?
Yeah, 'cause I remember at
And
first you did not want to
no, I did not.
because you don't want to be
No,
judged.
no. And I didn't want to be judged. I don't want to be part of that stigma. But once I got past that, I was in a place where I felt more confident, began to just having these conversations more and more and more
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
and I did a lot of reflection too on how my family deals with emotions or doesn't deal with emotions. Again, it's not me trying to put them down or thinking less of them.
Mhm.
It comes from somewhere,
Right.
right? Like I said, it makes total sense why we've we're dealing with things in that way, but it was like just on me
Mhm.
to help move our family forward. And so it
There's
just
it's always on like at least one person just needs to start to continue to break down some of
yeah.
those barriers and then others will see and will feel safe and comfortable to do the same, I feel
And
like.
then I became a therapist, and then they just, hey, can you give me some therapy? I'm like, no, I cannot. No. Matter of fact, you probably owe me back pay for all my life of giving you advice and everything else. So
Don't say
I say it all
that.
the time. I don't know why you're embarrassed. I just said that to at least 5 family members. Probably got more to say it to. Uh,
That's funny.
but
No,
but
it's
yeah.
but isn't that wild? Like pause for a second.
Okay.
Isn't that wild that like you went through your own experience and what it is to be perhaps silencing yourself so that you wouldn't be judged.
Right.
And now, like, fast forward all the incredible work that you've done, hard work at that, and now you're a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a beautiful full
And I'm a
circle.
therapist for like people of color.
Yeah. Yeah. You're filling the gap of what
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know for me, like I know that we talk a lot about sharing personal stories, but I think there's this one that, you know, it's important to talk about how depression can show up differently in ways that we just might not even expect. And as someone who's been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, definitely had my battles with depression, right? Like I definitely have my high highs, my low lows, and my I'm doing well type of thing kind of waves. But something I didn't know, something that really took me by surprise, I don't know if you remember this, babe, but was that depression could show up in ways I did not expect after a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And, as of today, ugh, I've experienced 9 miscarriages. And for a long time, I did not understand the depth of what I was going through emotionally. One, because it was hard to find somebody to talk to about it. I still have not been able to find a compatible grief counselor. But have like our individual and our couples therapist has been amazing.
Hmm.
But it felt I felt this heavy weight of like emptiness, like persistent emptiness and hopelessness and like really feeling like something's not right with me. What's wrong with me? But I wasn't sure again if it was like that grief, or that we're like that grief cycle, because I'm pretty well aware of the grief cycle. I kind of even know when I'm at the grief cycle, where I'm at in the grief cycle. But it wasn't until like again, my doctor that she was telling me that the symptoms that I was experiencing was postpartum depression, which many people don't realize that that can happen after a miscarriage. And I just remember sitting there and hearing her say that, and I felt like an instant weight of relief.
Mm.
Like I felt so seen. And I was like, wow, I only thought that that was for people that actually had a life born child. And she's like, well, that's often the misconception, but it's not. She's like, what you are experiencing is postpartum depression. So give yourself grace, be kind to yourself. Your body has gone through a lot that although it did not give birth, it gave a lot and it needs the rest, it needs the love, it needs the kindness that you deserve. And I was like, wow, this is normal. Like I am normal. What I'm experiencing is normal. And that it's not just my regular depression, is that, wow, there's other people that go through this too.
Hmm.
And, I just thought for, a while that I was abnormal, that I was different. And it's just that's something you don't hear a lot about that, for people that do experience miscarriages, they don't often talk about like that postpartum depression. Um, but it was hard. It was really hard. And like, we don't have to get into the hormonal part of it. Like, my hormones were all over the place. And so, especially because I, do a lot of like getting my body ready, with all the hormones to then be able to transfer an embryo to then potentially get pregnant. So, like, my body's going through it, like, and has gone through it. And so, I felt like a lot of visibility. And then now, that I can acknowledge when this is happening, I literally feel a lot better just by like acknowledging, okay, this is what's happening to my body. This is what's happening to my mind. It's normal. It happens. It happens to individuals that go through what I'm going through. And I don't know what it is, but it just by naming it just supports me so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Any other strategies, like coping strategies that you'd like to share with folks
I,
as a Black man?
I would say, do your own research, and do your own self exploration.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like, even sometimes like I have an exercise bike in the morning. I wake up and I'll, get on that, and it's like medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I can just
Mm-hmm.
feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
hanging out with friends, golf. Like I don't know what I would have done without golf throughout the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was real.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like that opportunity to one, be outside and connect with nature in a certain capacity, also have some type of
Mhm.
social interaction. And then, the physical aspect of it too. I know y'all don't think golf is physical, but ain't nobody out there walking, you know, in golf courses, right? So,
Yeah.
if you haven't done it, don't talk to me, okay? Um, but those are some things that help me out. Meditation helps me out. Writing helps me out when it comes to
Mhm.
processing my thought. Music helps me out.
Mhm.
Those are some things that really help me out. And I know once it, I do need my time alone. But once I start getting into weeks of separation and
Yeah.
not wanting to talk to anybody, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I gotta find that balance. I'm always thinking about that balance
Yeah. Yeah.
of rest and rejuvenation and hermit and withdrawal.
Yeah.
So like that's a real thing.
Yeah. 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 That's a good way to put it. I think for me, honestly, like some quick little nuggets, I think it was really being open and transparent with my immediate family about what was actually going on with me and how, yeah, I was the older sister, but I need to break down. I need to be okay not being okay. And I openly talked about this for a long time now. I mean, I feel like because I've
Yeah.
been experiencing miscarriages for a long time, that I can now officially say that with all the boundaries and all the conversations and iterations of them understanding mental health and depression, you know, we've all gotten to a place where we honor it, we name it for ourselves. And I'm proud to be part of a family like my dad. He often talks about his own depression and how he's gone to therapy, even at his age as a Latino man. He's like honored the fact that like he wasn't okay when he experienced a stroke and almost died. And so I'm just so grateful that through all the work, although painful, got us to this place that my brother's in recovery. My other younger brother is, ongoing therapy. And then my other brother manages and copes in a very, his own way too, which is fine. And so I think that to me has been healing.
Yeah.
Being able to be part of a family that provides that visibility, which is so essential, where there is no judgment. And I think talking about it out loud for the last couple years has been really helpful for me. So my
Hmm.
personal social media account, I've been always very open about my mental health struggles and my miscarriages because it's healing. It's healing to be able to then find and connect other people that are going through the same thing as you. I also think being able to balance out like checking myself where I'm like, okay, babe, I need to work out today. Hold me accountable, right? Like that again, like that's my way to finding my people. And then lastly, the finding my people thing has been a key component to my as a coping strategy. The people that I surround myself with know and understand what I go through and know that when I text them, actually, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not doing well. There's no personal feelings. Nobody gets upset. There's no judgment. It's the I see you, no worries, next time. Those are the people that I
Hmm.
surround myself with. And that although they may not have either experienced miscarriages or experienced depression, they provide that visibility and that connection. And it's taken a lot of time to curate those people in my life because it's important. It's been necessary. It's survival. And one of my once at a group of friends of mine, we call it the mujeres dinner. We, once a month we meet up for dinner, like, and that's how we connect. And again, healing, restorative, a strategy that really supports me getting out of the house during these dark days.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really important. So um yeah. So I think some of the things we want to reiterate and encourage you is that this is a process.
Yeah.
It's not linear. It's not you make it to the mountaintop and you stay there. It's not one way. This is ebbs and flows, peaks
Hmm.
and valleys. That's what this is about. And it's a cyclical nature.
Hmm.
And finding out what you need in order to continue to maintain is super important. And hopefully, understanding and you maybe gotten the sense that it's time for you to start your journey.
Yeah.
It's time for you to begin acknowledging some of the things that you've been going through. It's time for you to seek out support in one way or another. It's time for you to start building that village, that support system around you
Mhm.
of people who are in your life, who are your loved ones, who love you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's time.
Because your kids see that,
Oh, yes,
right?
they do.
We don't want them to just survive. We want them to heal and to know that resting and recovering is essential to life because we live in a world where they teach us otherwise, and we have to set that example for our own children. Because it matters
It
to
matters.
us, right?
It
Like
matters.
we're already Black and brown communities are being killed and split in so many different ways.
Hmm.
Like, don't allow that. Don't do that to like yourself, right? You deserve and to be gifted with healing, however that looks like for you. Um, all that being said, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
Mm.
processing all of these things, um, mental health wise, is just another piece to to move out of survival mode
Yep,
and begin thriving. To
absolutely,
move out of surviving and into thriving,
Mm,
and that's our goal.
absolutely. Well, that
I
was a
think
great episode, babe.
I think we did it. I think we did it. Yeah, you're right. That was a great
I
episode.
am very proud because then again, this is the next level of healing, right? Is being able to share this with you,
Hmm.
listeners, and share it with anybody you feel like might need it. That was really good.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to reiterate that.
yeah,
Share it, literally. Share your stories. Share this video.
mhm,
Share this podcast.
yeah,
Share these moments to somebody who may be in need of starting that journey or needing to hear another perspective.
absolutely.
Um,
Sometimes it's best that it comes from somebody else.
yeah,
Sometimes,
and
yeah,
that's why we do it. That's why we are doing this,
yeah,
because we haven't always heard these voices,
yeah,
and so please, uh, you sharing this video, you sharing this podcast could literally be a watershed moment in somebody's life
yeah.
where they are just branching out and begin again moving from surviving to thriving. So
Mhm,
when we say share, it's not some like frivolous like little thing. Like you literally could be changing somebody's life because
absolutely,
that's our goal every
one
time we get
hundred
on these
percent.
mics.
With that being said, we definitely wanted to remind you that talking about mental health, especially in our communities, is the first stepped is the first step towards breaking the stigma.
Mhm.
So when we talk about all those ideas and thoughts and perspectives about breaking that stigma, again, just talking about it is the first step towards breaking that. I also wanted to just drop a little nuggets of like resources and supports that are out there for you all. And I'll put that also in our social media page as well. So if you're looking for resources, here are a few places you can turn to for support.
Mhm.
These are just a few. There's so many out there, but always important to start with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 988 text available 24/7, and it's completely confidential. Beam, Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective, Therapy for Black Girls, Latinx Therapy. Again, I'll put these links in our website. But again, these are some culturally, linguistically responsive supports, either via therapy and or chat spaces and or phone call spaces for you to be able to speak to somebody regarding your mental health. And if you're feeling like you need to take a step towards healing, but you're not sure where to start, remember that self-care is as crucial part of our mental health. And I talk about that all the time. It doesn't mean the bubbles and the yoga. And it doesn't just mean that. It truly means like the example that I mentioned earlier around setting boundaries, around taking care of yourself and your marriage, dating each other, right? It's a lot of the routine things that we don't do anymore because we don't have time for it, but all of it matters for your self-care and for your mental health.
Yeah, I think something that helped me is leaning into my support system, whether it's friends and family or my community, people who don't judge me and but will walk with me through
Mhm.
tough times.
Yeah.
If you don't have a support network, start small. Maybe it's just reaching out to one person you trust or joining a group or support network online. Understand that we're stronger together. And
We especially now.
absolutely. And we really want to encourage you to keep this conversation going. Again, I already talked about sharing the episode. Comment, tell us what was helpful. Ask us questions that you want to know more about,
Mhm.
or you want us to speak deeper and speak in more detail about.
Mhm. Mhm.
Please, do all those things so that we can help spread this message. We're breaking down these walls together, and your voice matters. So you can also join us on social media to continue the conversation. And again, just let us know what's on your hearts as well. You're not alone in this.
Yeah. Thank you. That was so beautiful. That's right. We want to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram on La Vida Blended. Share your thoughts, your perspectives, your wins, your stories, your questions. Don't forget to review, share it, and anybody who might benefit from hearing this story today. Just a quick nugget, another quick nugget. When you drop it to somebody's text message, say, I love and care for you. Like
Mm,
it's always coming from a place of love is another one. Hey, I noticed that you've been struggling. Found this might be helpful for you.
mm-hmm, hmm. Yep.
But most importantly, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember healing is a journey. It is
Okay.
not a final destination, and it doesn't happen overnight. And every step forward is it's a progress. It's a movement.
Hmm.
And you deserve to take up space in this world. I always say this to Donnell and Kendall. You deserve to take up space in this world,
We're here for a reason.
to feel heard and to get all the support and love that you need. But most importantly, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah. Are we done now? We finally done?
We're finally done.
See, I had a friend who told us that we end the show like 3 times. One, I want to say is not my fault, even though this time it is. Two is we end the show like black and brown people say goodbye. You don't just give one hug. You got to hug like 3 people. It's a process, all right? So bear with us. Love y'all. Stay mixy, stay blended.
Peace.